Hey everyone, we are really excited about our episode this week because we actually have our first official business owner on the show, which is exciting. We have Nate Trail here, who's the owner of To The T Plumbing and Heating in Thornton, Colorado. And we had an amazing conversation where we actually touched on a lot of things, from hiring someone to growing your company to handing things off and what that looks like. So whether you're a business owner or want to start a business, we know this is going to bring you a lot of value. And we're excited for you to hear about how you can identify a leak versus a flood in your business or life. We're excited to listen. Well, Nate, thank you so much for joining us this morning, making the cold drive up. We're excited to have you on the show. To start, would just love to hear about yourself and a quick look at To The T Plumbing and a little bit of history there.
Well, thanks for having me. To The T, we started it back in 2010. During the recession, I didn't know if I was going to get laid off, so I wanted to make sure I had somewhere to go. But my career at Arcade kind of blossomed, took off. So I decided to stay with them. Up until 2 years ago, I opened up To The T again in 2019 of March, and we've been going ever since for 2 years.
Justin and I were looking and kind of getting some things ready for the podcast. I think I saw somewhere that your wife, Megan, was actually the one who maybe had initiated or kind of brought the idea and pushed a little bit. So I'm curious what that conversation looked like and if you guys were both on board right away or if it was kind of her giving you a sales pitch over time, because it sounds like she was the one that was really more interested in jumping in and doing this.
Right. Well, I'm going to put it in perspective of where we were at when this happened. So I just came back from a job with RK, one of the 3 high rises that I was doing, and was not going real well. I took it over from a superintendent. So I was sitting in the hot tub. So you can picture me sitting in a hot tub, and I was laying there just completely stressed out. And she says, "Well, why don't you just start To The T again? Why don't you just do our own thing and take it from there? You don't have to keep doing this with RK." So we kind of just talked about it, and we were walking our Doberman around, and I was like, "Well, let's just do it. Let's just hop in and just get it rolling." And a month later, we were rolling with To The T. So it was not a whole lot of planning,
right?
But it was kind of like, let's just do it and jump in, and we're never going to do it. So just take that risk and start it.
Right. Would you recommend a hot tub to anyone who's looking to start a business as a good think tank?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's a great place to think.
There you go. Yeah. Well, yeah, would love to dive into your background and kind of the history of where you came from, and then obviously towards the middle or end here. Obviously, I have some richer questions about the roots of your company and the value behind it. But I think would love to hear about your experience working for RK Mechanical. Just before we started, you were talking about how you've done a lot of work with them, changing the Denver skyline forever. So I'm curious if there's anything within that history that you think changed you or prepared you for running a business, whether it was good or bad.
Well, RK taught me a lot of lessons. So a big thank you to Rick and John. They gave me a lot of opportunity to grow. They never really held me back. They always let me say yes and make my own mistakes, if it will.
Yeah.
When I started out as a plumber, I was just like, oh man, I'm just a lowly plumber, and I'm just going to get through it, right? Well, then I saw my career blossoming. I started running work. I got my first promotion. It was at Ralph Carr, Supreme Court downtown. And actually Clayton, that works for us now, was the superintendent that gave me my first promotion. So it's kind of weird how that all kind of worked out.
Oh, yeah.
I learned a lot of lessons being a superintendent, running work, dealing with customers, and, having employees at the same time, scheduling, planning. If you're not looking at next year, you're already behind kind of thing. So, Rick and John, they did a lot for me. I appreciate what they did. But it was at the point in my career that I was, like I said, I was ready to just hop in and do our own thing, and kind of alleviate the stress of having 3 projects. But now I've got my own stress that I'm dealing with. That's my stuff now.
Yeah.
So, but at least it's mine, right?
Yeah.
So, but I can't thank them enough. RK did a lot for me. And like I said, I could drive downtown, and every time I did a job, I wrote my daughter's name on the top of the building somewhere. So, and now I'd have to go back to them. Now I got 3 girls. So
yeah.
Some of the buildings don't have it, but I always tell them I'm that weird dad that's like, oh, hey, I built that building and your name's in it, you know.
Yeah.
But it's cool just to know that I did that type of work. Will I ever do that type of work again? Who knows? But it was real fun to actually, like we talked about, changing Denver skyline forever.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate you coming up here on the podcast because I'm kind of excited and maybe take a little bit of a step back, but I kind of think of this as one of our first podcasts now because
we had 6 warm-ups.
Yeah, we've had 6 warm-ups. We've mainly done internal people, right? And we've kind of got all these things about our services, which are great. But first business owner. And we couldn't have thought of a better person to have up than you because you really are our people. Like, you know, the way that you run your business, you know, the value that you're trying to provide. Obviously, I know from the service side, we've helped out tremendously, but you also brought a lot of value to us too in referring people. It's been absolutely great. So it's just fun to have you on as our kind of like first guest outside of the Beyond Blue thing. So appreciate that. But I love what you're saying about this, like even the little things. So I pay attention to the little things a lot, and writing your daughter's name on each job site that you were on when you were with RK, like that to me just speaks a lot of who you are as a person. And I just really would love to hear from you, like that piece of To the T plumbing that is a little bit different, that goes a little bit further, just that little piece than what normal people would do, and the value you're trying to bring to your clientele and your customer base who's hiring you, and just how that really affects you, because I know you're a passionate person and you really do appreciate doing a good job for people. And I just love to hear how you really shape that in your mind and in your business as far as like how you present that to customers.
Well, first I'm going to step back to the first part of what you said. I remember sitting down with the Remini the first time, and I found you guys, I think it was 3:00 in the morning, and I'm just searching local, companies, because I wanted to talk to a marketing company that I could see, and we could talk about that later. But I remember sitting with Remini. I was like, I want to be the guy in the video I just watched last night. If you can take me there. And so we're here on a podcast, so thank you for having me. We're in a video here too. So
there we go.
We made it, right? To the team, the biggest core value that we have is our family. Even with the employees that we bring on, that's important for us to have their family time, because that's something in my career at RK, and it's my own fault. Remember, I always said yes to take on everything. I probably neglected being with the family all the time. So that was huge for me, to be with our family, and that's our core value. And with that being a core value, it's only going to bleed off into our customers, right?
Yes.
So we're a family-owned company, and we're helping families with their problems, right? And not every one of their problems is good for them,
right? But
at least we can try to bring them a good experience with the family core value, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. And I love that. It's honestly actually something that we've worked on really hard here at Beyond Blue too, is that I'm always saying that if we take care of the people internally, in my mind and in my opinion, it's impossible for that not to bleed into our clientele, into our customers. If everyone here is just thrilled to come to work, happy, they feel appreciated, they feel like they're making a difference and they're adding value to us as a company, that's just going to extend through to our clients. So I love that you say that about the way that you approach it as well, of taking care of the people. And that's essentially going to be taking care of your customers too.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's awesome. So what else you got?
Well, actually, this question was towards the bottom, but I always like having these natural transitions, because I was saying similar again as I was Facebook stalking. Let's be honest. Let's not call it research. It was just Facebook stalking.
Remini said she did the same thing when I first signed on.
It's smart.
It's kind of what we do, right?
But I was really impressed with, the hot tub and the Dobermans and the family, and I could sense and get this feel of your focus on a family and focus on these sustainable rhythms as a business owner, which I think is really hard to do sometimes, especially when you're in the plumbing world and there's always emergencies that come up. So maybe you can speak a little bit more to how those hard lines were drawn when you started To the T, because you obviously had the opposite at RK and wanted to change that. And so I'd love to hear maybe if you have any advice or tidbits for other business owners as far as how they can prioritize that and why it's important for you? Because I get that sense from, what you're putting out online, and you seem like you may have your own new stresses, but it seems like you are not super tired or overwhelmed. I'm sure that's part of it.
Right. Well, I mean, biggest thing that was good for me is when I was working the 7 to 3:30 or 5 to 6 really actually with RK, I never really got to see my girls. They were always asleep when I left, right? Especially when I had a job up in Blackhawk and I'd be out 5 a.m. I'm gone.
Right.
That was big for me to be there when they wake up. At least so I could say I love you. We can whatever, just talk or eat food, whatever it is. So that was key for me, for them and to be with them. My wife's a teacher at Brighton High School now, so I get to spend a little time with her before she has to jet off too.
Yep.
But she works for us too at the same time, so she's probably got more stress than anybody because she's doing both at the same time.
Yeah.
And to speak on the Dobermans and everything else, we got Bella right when, maybe a year into it, and I thought it'd be really cool to kind of attach her to the business because I like seeing her grow. Right. So I figured why not everybody else? So we started doing that daily Bella, of taking pictures of her every day. So that's really fun for us. And, I'm a kind of a huge dog person. So that's part of our family pretty much. So, but anything I can say to any business owners is make sure the business is not a primary focus. It's why are you running your business, and that's for your family. That's unless you just want to get rich and whatever, I guess. But for me, that's not the most important thing. For me, it's the family. So,
yeah, that's really good. I appreciate that insight, and I think that ties in well. We were making the joke that we actually have the book hiding back here, but there's a TED Talk by, I want to say Simon Sinek, hope I'm pronouncing his name right, but was explaining to you before the podcast that he draws these 3 circles and was saying most people start with the what and move out to the why instead of starting with the why. And it sounds like, because of your experience coming into it, you had that why first. And that could differ for people. Some people might just want to make it the best company, make the most money possible. But it sounds like you want to do this for the long term and want to be a part of your daughter's lives. And so you had that why from the get-go, and that really shaped how the company was structured from there forward.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, that was the biggest thing is I was away from my family. And that was the stress, and I needed to be with my family. So that was the primary focus from the beginning. And each employee I think it's even in our paperwork is make sure your family's first when they sign on.
Love it.
Because that's huge. And making sure that time is allocated with them. So sure, during the summertime when, it's 100 degrees out and ACs are going, we're going to work late, but there's days that we don't, and they get to spend time with their family, which is huge. So and that's bled off, and that bleeds off in from our office to our text, from me to my wife Megan, everybody. And so I think we have pictures of all the kids and everything else too, of everybody's family, so because they're just as much a part of the team really, because their parents are with us too. So that's pretty cool to see all them wearing to the T gear and all that. They're all having fun with it. So
some brand reps out there.
Right.
Has there ever been a moment? I mean, company culture is always fascinating to me. So has there ever been a moment where you had to challenge someone, where you noticed like maybe it wasn't the first priority? I know it's still a little bit younger, but I'm curious if there's ever been a moment where you had to, tell someone, hey, I think I want to see more, or whatever that looks like.
I'll start with me.
Okay.
Right?
Right in the mirror.
Yeah. Sometimes, you get a little focused on pushing, grinding, hustling, and you got to take a step back and be like, okay, why am I here?
Yeah.
You got to look at yourself and make sure that why you're doing this is why you're doing this. And you got to reset sometimes, because I'll just be a workaholic when it comes to some stuff. So it starts with me, really, and hopefully it bleeds off into everybody else. We haven't really had to do it with anybody else on our team, but like I said, I've caught myself even doing it, so I've had to look at myself, if that makes sense.
Yep. We have a lot of similarities, Nate. I know we haven't spent much time together, but yes, I tend to be very similar like that. I'd love to hear like what your strategies are for yourself, or how you really approach knowing when you need to take a step back and knowing when, hey, this is like, it's summertime and it's 100 degrees outside and we got a lot of things to take care of business wise. So approaching that from family, and then also talking about to employees about their families, like how do you approach that with like, okay, it's time to take a step back, or it's time to reset, or it's really time to push here, and just from a business owner perspective, balancing that for the most part with your loved ones and your families and with the people you care about that are running the business with you.
Right. Well, I'll bring up something that was just, I think it was just a week ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe. Remini and Rima in my office, we're all texting, and I shot a picture of a puzzle that we were doing, and Remini said, "Oh, that looks boring, right?"
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna welcome boring right now.
Yeah.
Because all summer we were gone, we were going,
Yeah.
and it made me look at it at that point. It was like, well, being boring sometimes is okay, and that makes me look at it. Okay, well, enjoy it right now, because that's when you're with your family, and if it's gonna be slow, enjoy it with your family, right? So. Slow season is what it is, but it makes up for that time that maybe you were a little busy during the summer. So that's something that I've approached, just welcoming stuff in, and making sure I don't get too like, oh no, we're slow or this and that. No, you got to just focus on being with your family at that time when maybe you're not, when it's 101 degrees outside. So
Yeah.
I guess if that answers your question.
It does, yeah. And I feel like, and maybe you do feel this way or maybe you don't, but, I do care a lot about our clientele and our customers, and that they're taken care of. So sometimes I feel like when there's an urgent need from a client or customer, something that comes up, which for the most part, I'd say, Chris, you know this too, probably 90% of the time, it's not really that urgent, but it's made more urgent than it actually is. But I want to take care of it right away, and just knowing and just being able to set back of like, okay, if this doesn't happen in the next 5-10 minutes, everyone's probably still going to be okay. Right. Yeah. Like, and I'm able to do this. And it's funny you bring up the example of the puzzle. I had one last night that was very similar. All of a sudden I'm on the phone. It's 5:30 at night. I'm talking to somebody, work, and all of a sudden I just hear this banging in the living room, and I'm like, what is going on? And just out of nowhere, my youngest daughter comes in and is like, Daddy, will you play slapjack with us? And it's just this little card game where you like slap the table and you collect cards, and it's really silly, really simple, but she was just hysterically laughing and having a great time. And I just immediately was like, okay, I got to go. And went out in the living room and took care of it and just had fun with my family. And so just knowing sometimes that it's going to be okay. Like if it's a half hour, an hour later, that's okay. I think we live in this culture now where everyone feels like they need immediate access to somebody. And sometimes that's really good. Sometimes that's needed. But for the most part, it's usually okay if we slow down a little bit, I think. I don't know if you feel the same way sometimes with the way you want to take care of customers.
Absolutely. Well, and you sometimes in my industry, you can talk a customer off a ledge.
Yeah.
What's a leak, or what's a flooding?
Yeah.
Well, define it. Is it a drip? I mean, what is it? Can it wait till Monday? Do I really have to pull a tech out, and pull them away from their family when it's a leaky faucet? It's going to be there Monday, and we can just take care of it.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
A lot of people's, their problems are huge when we'll get through it, and you can usually talk them off a ledge most of the time. So yeah,
that's good. Yeah. I feel like you just gave me a lot of like analogies I can use with our customer base when they're calling us and freaking out. And I'll just be like, is this a leak or is this a flood? What do we got here?
Our ceiling's falling down. Yeah. I mean, it's a real thing. I mean, people do say it's a flood, and you get there and the faucet's dripping.
Yeah.
There's only a foot of water built up. I can wait.
Yeah, right. Well, we got some restoration teams.
There you go.
That's awesome. Yeah. Getting back to kind of the business side, and I'd love to hear some questions or some answers from you in regards to like from RK Mechanical again, like. And again, this might be a little more personal. So now I'm just turning into this my own interest of the podcast. So, but what are those lessons that you learned from RK Mechanical and that you brought over into to the T Plumbing? And when I ask that, I don't necessarily always mean just like good lessons. Like, what are the things you came away from that were like, that's something I don't ever want my business to look like. Right. That I don't want to have that type of culture.
Well, I think there's I think there's positives and negatives to everything,
Of
right?
course.
One of the positives I drew from RK is branding.
Yeah.
Right? That is one thing that is the brand, and that's the brand driven, and that's the brand you get behind, and that's the brand they're going to keep moving forward with. So that was something for me. To the T was my brand.
Yeah.
If anybody's ever seen my van, it's pretty obnoxiously big, right?
Yeah.
But it's on everything. If I'm probably going to have socks here pretty soon, they're going to have everything else. But it's a brand, and you got to get behind it, and you got to make sure you continue to follow with that brand.
Yeah.
And that's something I took from RK, is that they are huge on branding.
That's
huge.
great.
And then culture wise, I like I said, I don't ever want to get too big that the employees are not just employees. I always want them to be people. I'm not saying that's the culture they have, but it's a culture that they can get into.
Yeah.
Especially when running jobs and everything else with different superintendents. One of them are different, but making sure your employees are taken care of and they're not just a number. You'll hear a lot about that in larger companies, just not RK, but larger companies that kind of feel like, well, I'm just number.
Yeah.
5281, and that's not who you want to be.
Exactly. Yep.
So that's one of the things in our cultures that it's got to be about the people and their families too.
Yeah. I love that. And I've had similar experiences with that, with large corporations and just feeling like a number. So yeah, that's good. And the branding piece, that is just brilliant and absolutely great. And I can think of one company off the top of my head that can help with branding. So, if anyone's interested.
Yeah, I try to send them that way every time.
Yep. So we appreciate it. But okay.
Yeah, I would love to hear, maybe specifically when it came to starting the company. It sounds like there was a couple different times that it was kind of going in and out. But I always love if people are willing to share the big L's or big losses along the way, or big lessons. That maybe if we have someone listening who is new to being a business owner or curious about it and want to do it in the next year or so, something, even if it's just a small piece that they can avoid down the road. I think it's always helpful to try and pay it forward and maybe through your misery or lessons, but pass it on.
Oh, my first year, I'll tell you this, when you're a business owner, everybody wants your money.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to come with you with great ideas, guaranteed leads. I'll be here. I'll be there.
Yeah.
I'll make this landing page. I'll do this. And that's why when I chose you guys, and that's why I recommend you guys to everybody on our Facebook platforms, our business platforms, even personal friends. I think Restoration One, Kelly and John are with you guys. And I spent a lot of money trying to get work through the door with companies that didn't do anything for me. Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought it was important when I was looking for local companies at 3:00 in the morning, that I wanted to see somebody, I wanted to talk to somebody. And then that's when I got, kind of hooked up with Remini, and we sat down for lunch, and she made a great analogy. She's like, there's plumbing companies out there that are going to rip you off. Right. And that there is, unfortunately, there is companies that are going to rip you off. She goes, but we're not here to do that. She goes, we're slow, or how does she put it? We are slow, but we will get there. I can't remember the exact words she had said. But she's like, we're going to do it with you. Right.
Yeah.
And then I love Remini. She's awesome.
Yeah, she is good.
And I was so busy and I was still working and everything else. And she was texting like, are we going to do this? We need to get a plan. And I just kind of ignored her, right? And she goes, you know what? You might be the worst customer I've ever had, right? And I was like, you know what? I love that. I called her right back. And I was like, I love that you're so honest with me. And that stuck with me. She's super honest. She's going to tell you how it is. Good, bad, or indifferent. She's going to tell you how it is. And so we actually had hired on Rima. She handles our office. She's now our operations manager. And we came here that day, our very first day, and we sat down with your team, and we signed everything up, and we started going there. And Remini says, if you call me tomorrow, Nate, and they say, hey, my phone's not ringing, I'm going to punch you. So the next morning at 8 a.m., I called her, and I was like, hey, what's going on? My phone's not ringing. She's like, Nate, I just told you. But ever since, Remini's one that I can get a hold of, even, when the market's changing or something's going on with Google, we're always getting updates. So that was the biggest thing for me, is that I spent so much money doing that with advertising and see what works, the home advisors, what's the other one? There's so many of them that are out there.
Right. Yeah.
That it just was, it's like, feels like everybody's trying to take your money with no return.
Yeah.
That's something I didn't get with you guys. I got all the return and it's still coming. So that's something I can recommend to any business owner out there. Don't waste your money on anybody else. Just go Beyond Blue Media. And I'm not getting paid to say that. I'm actually still paying them. So that's the biggest thing. And I like I said, anybody I can recommend. And I think you guys see it on the Facebook and all that.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to always, because especially new business owners, because they're trying to figure out the market and how to do it, and that's one of the biggest things is how do you get marketing that's actually going to work without spending, $80 grand not doing anything. So that's the biggest thing I could recommend to anybody is slow and steady. I think that's what she said. Sorry, it just popped into my head.
Slow and steady. There
slow
it is.
And steady.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's all I could recommend to people.
Yeah. I love that.
I wonder if that ties in a little bit with what you were talking about, JT, of not even just with marketing, but in general. I think because of this age we live in, we hear about, people becoming millionaires overnight because of Bitcoin or whatever it is. And they launch whatever kind of business it is, and they expect it to be huge, and they expect to be buying a yacht the next year. And then maybe they aren't as intentional with the slow and steady.
Yeah.
So I don't know if either one of you can speak on that, but I think there is that attitude of thinking it's just going to flip overnight and it's going to be easy. Some people might expect that some hardships come up, but there really is a lot of value in doing it the right way, I think.
Yeah.
Rimini might have stole it from Matt, our ad manager, but he often says, maybe he stole it from you. I don't know.
It somebody, we all just regurgitate the same stuff.
Yeah. It's just a loop. Yeah. But somebody in our office said we like to walk before we run. Specifically in the ad world, because it doesn't make sense to take a $10,000 budget and just throw it out there and see what works. You got to set up a few things, test, see what works, and then maybe after a month or two, that's when you really know what to dive into.
Yeah. So one of my favorite things is that they're really, for the large majority of things, there's no such thing as an overnight success, right? Like even if you see somebody that just all of a sudden out of nowhere blew up, like, easiest example is like musician or singer or somebody like that. They spent their whole life working on that. Same with To the T Plumbing. Like you've had some success in your first couple years, probably some pretty good success. You've also had a couple of losses that we just kind of talked about and how it took you to get there. Hopefully business owners can learn from that. But the thing is, you worked your butt off at RK Mechanical for a number of years, gaining experience, doing all these things, starting To the T Plumbing while you're still there and figuring that out and learning along the way. And then just getting to that point where you're like, this is time. And so I think that's part of it too, is that, there's, even in marketing, because you're right, I think this is something that people think when they're looking at it, that it's something that is easy and happens right away. And it doesn't. And that's the first thing we always try to be as transparent with our clients as possible of like, it is the walk before we run, it is the kind of slow and steady type thing, because that's what's going to last long term. If you're finding somebody out there that's going to promise something overnight, Rimini says this a lot, but turn and run as fast as you can because they're probably doing it in a way that will hurt your business long term. Short term might work. Long term, it's going to be bad for you. So yeah, that I think that's really important. And I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
And I seen it happen firsthand with Restoration One, with not the slow and steady, but let's get you guaranteed right now.
Yeah,
and it blackballed them. And then.
Not with us, right?
Not with. They're with you now. They're with you now.
Now.
Now they are with you now, and they're pretty happy with you guys too. So
they're great.
But that was a great example for me to see.
Yeah.
That happened, and it's good to see too. Though I always reach out to other businesses and talk to them that have been open for 10 years and 12 years, but it's weird when they come back to you and say, who are you using?
Yeah.
And now I'm like, well, here they are. And I think now Pro Power's with you guys. And that was one that was been in business for 10 years,
Right.
And it's really cool to see that I can help them in that way of something that's working for us. So
yeah.
If you keep it up, you might be passing Rim as our best salesman.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say, along the lines, we had a conversation either in December, I think in December, with you and your team, and you have some pretty ambitious goals for 2021 coming up, which is exciting. We like clients that push the envelope and don't just want to stay steady and are always asking how to hit the next benchmark. And maybe this is a broader conversation that I'd love to jump into as far as what that process looks like as far as setting goals. I imagine it starts with the values you have of the family first and then growing everything from there. But would love to know, are you the kind of person who loves to set everything as a bit ambitious, probably not going to hit it goal just to be dangerous? Or do you like a nice balance and anything else that comes up in that world for you?
Well, I think in anything you do, especially being a business owner, it's going to involve risk. And if you just don't do something because it's risky, then you could just be passing something up. But to be able to overcome risk, you got to be able to bring in the right people to handle that risk, right? As you heard, we brought in somebody to handle our construction side. And that was the superintendent that my first promotion was. So he came over to our team to handle the construction side. Because I've learned over the years, you can't just hold everything in and control everything. You've got to delegate and kind of manage the delegation more than just micromanaging every little thing. Because you'll fail miserably. You'll miss something. You won't answer this. You won't get that done, and you're ultimately just going to be leaving everything behind. So I've learned to kind of delegate and try to help, in a sense, myself, because somebody else is handling it. So yes, ambitious goals. We have now got somebody for construction, and we're kicking that off, and it's starting to climb. We're landing some pretty big jobs and whatnot with that. But it's, again, when that grows, we've got to bring in the right people to keep making that grow slow and steady, really. Because if you take too much, you're gonna fail. So that's something. Yeah, I do have ambitious goals, but I'm always thinking. Right. My brain never shuts off. I'm up at, like I said, 3 a.m. thinking about something that comes up or notes. But it's something that growing you have to do if you're going to grow. You can just stay a one-man shop, but you're going to be working every day. Yeah. So you're not going to get that week off when somebody needs you, right? So it's a matter of having that balance and making things grow, but slow and steady. Don't grow overnight, because you're going to fail miserably. You will.
Right.
You won't have $1 million. You'll just have to owe $1 million.
Yeah. Are there any at 3 a.m. in the morning or 2 a.m. whenever it is? This probably changes often if I'm assuming correctly. But what right now is your vision long term for To the T?
Well, I see our service side's always going to be there. We're going to keep that. We'll grow it as it kind of grows in our area as we branch out and on Google and whatnot when we get around. But our construction side, I see that growing, but I don't see it growing to being ever be a RK Mechanical or the large scale mechanical contractors. It's probably going to be a small shop, just enough to supplement and have a partner with that and be able to grow it. But then they'll work together. Ultimately, they're going to bleed over to each other, service and construction would. So I see it going that way. I've even kicked the idea maybe just going general contracting too.
Why not?
So just stuff like that. But I've got to get everything in order for that to even happen. Right. But it's an idea. That's that little third circle out there that I'm thinking of. So it may happen, it may not. But
it's on the stove for now. It's just in the back.
Right. You would ask me 2 years ago if I would have this, where I'm at now. I'd said no.
Right.
We've doubled our double, I call it.
Yeah.
I wanted to add a van every year. In 2 years, we've got 4 vans going now, so
nice, including
mine. So it's insane to see that growth process happen. And that's one thing Remini said to me too. She's like, if you don't want to grow, don't use this. If you want to grow, you're going to have to use this. And that was one of the she was brutally honest with me. So, and that's what I appreciated about that. So don't use this if you don't want to grow. So that's been true.
Right.
You mentioned service area. What is your service area?
So service is northern Colorado, really. So we're basically Denver Metro North. We even do a lot of work in Denver itself. But getting recognized in Denver with so many companies there is tough. I'm not sure it'll be a few years before that happens. But north and east, we've grown a lot in the Brighton, Commerce City area, Thornton, North Glen, Longmont, even Firestone. Just seeing all those, we're starting to show in those areas.
Yeah.
But I'll go anywhere if the numbers right. I'll go to Vail, Breckenridge.
That wouldn't be so bad. Take a little weekend.
No, right? And it's one of those things. So we were in Castle Rock yesterday, and I'll go to the Springs if the money's right. So
right.
Our area is really where the customers are going to be. So that's in the service industry. That's kind of have to go with where the customers are. So
right.
We're just rolling with the punches at this point. So.
Nice.
Right.
Well, that's good. I appreciate that. So for anyone listening, if you're in those areas and need some plumbing and heating help, 2 of the T can help you out there.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
So
whether it's a flood or not actually a flood.
Right. Send me a picture.
Yeah, there you go. One of the things you said about growing these areas and not micromanaging, I think is pretty profound. Obviously, one of the owners of our company, Hunter, I've had a lot of conversations with him about handing things off and the anxiety that can come with that, because it's this little baby you've grown, and it's basically like you're handing a child to someone, and you're still checking in, but they're now responsible for growing it. So I'm wondering what that looks like for you, and obviously I'm sure there were some fears there, but like you said, at a certain point you just got to hand it off and let it go. So any advice for someone out there who is holding on to something, and like you said, there's risk, but is there maybe a way to calculate that and get over that hump of anxiety and kind of let someone take it?
Yeah, well, my biggest thing is you never know unless you do it, right? You're always going to have a fear, and being a business owner, you're always going to have a bit of an anxiety of handing something over. But it's a lot easier to talk to one person than talk to 50 people on that side, right? That's the thing is, if you don't let go, you'll never know. And if you want to hold it all in, you're probably going to fail miserably. So you'll age yourself too fast if you do that. So it's one of those, you just have to do it. And that's something I think I learned a lot at RK too, is being a superintendent and having foremen and general foremen and, journeymen and apprentices. You can you lay out the plan and you just watch the plan happen. And if you need to step in and the plan's not making right, it's not going as planned, you can adjust and tweak it a little bit, but just keep an eye on the plan and not so much on every little person that's out there, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm just going to keep going because I
Go.
have a list of questions in my head. I left going off the script, so there you go.
Yeah.
Similar vein, you talk about growing this team, and obviously I think it's amazing that you have the core value to start with. But I'm curious, in your interview or team growing process, if there's any green flags, like questions you ask and you get a really good answer, or something along the way where like, I don't know if they're going to be a good fit with us. Anything within that world, and maybe the first piece of advice to a business owner is know what your key value is when you're interviewing and see if that person fits that.
Right. Well, one of the green flags for us is how when the person's interviewing, are they asking me questions or am I asking them? Because if I'm asking them, I'm showing more interest that I need them. If they're asking me questions, that means they want to be in our brand, right? They want to know the ins and outs of everything we're doing. And every person that has came on so far has been that way. How we're moving forward, what's our plan. They'll even call me on a side note and say, hey, we're thinking of this. What do you think? And I'm like, I'm loving where your head's at. Let's keep talking about it, So them having questions shows me they have interest. And if anybody's just basically, that's the red flag to me if I'm asking them too many questions, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because I want them to know more about us so they can learn who's they're going to be joining.
Yeah.
So everybody we've got is that way. So it's awesome for us.
Yeah. I love your mindset with the first thing you led off with there, again, little things, is you went with green flag.
Yeah.
Like this is what I look for in somebody to want to have them with me. The green flag I'm looking for, not the red flag. That's not necessarily, so it was just kind of cool twist on that. I don't know if I've ever heard mention of the green flag.
I think he's been doing that the entire podcast.
Yeah.
Well, he said green flag first. So.
we've been saying like, what about something negative? And he's like, okay, so the positive.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you need often as a business owner. There's probably little things that come up, and I think that's a huge mindset piece to look at it and go, okay, is this an opportunity or is this going to fail me? And more often than not, like Justin said, let's just make the analogy. It's probably a leak. It might be a little bit, there might be a lot of water coming out, but it's not flooding your home yet.
Yeah.
And that mindset probably helps a lot when it comes to approaching anything really that you're addressing day to day.
Right. because every day's different.
Yep.
Every day is different.
Yeah.
You can plan it all you want, but we have to be able to pivot, and that's something I'll say. I think even when we were discussing everything in December, is that any business locked into one service or one industry, that's another thing I learned from RK.
Yeah.
They have RK Mechanical, RK Energy, RK Service,
Right,
RK
yeah.
Electrical. And that was a lot of that was grown out of the recession, right? And that's something that I kind of took from them. I don't want to say I stole it, but I learned it from them, is you got to be able to pivot,
Right?
Especially if you need to keep employees busy. Okay, this is slow, pivot. You can put them over here. You can pivot to this one. You're not going to just, your company can't flounder if you have things in place to help you grow.
Yeah.
Because inevitably some things may slow down, and that's something that I'm preparing for, possible recession or something could slow down.
Right.
That I want to be able to pivot, and I'm never locked into one spot, especially for our employees. If that makes any sense.
It does. One of my favorite quotes out there is Mike Tyson. Everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face.
Punched in the face.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
So it's just like you can plan as much as you want, but you got to be willing and able and flexible enough to pivot when that comes up.
Yeah.
So that's
Which
awesome.
we for sure saw in 2020. There was
Yeah.
a lot of pivots that people
Oh,
did
yeah.
not expect coming. I know for the plumbing world especially, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe initially there was actually quite a big surge because I think there were some educational pieces you guys had to focus on putting out because people were now home and for whatever reason were just flushing whatever they wanted down the toilet. And so you guys were like, here's 10 things you shouldn't flush. Guess what? It's everything except toilet paper.
It's like, actually, that was.
Don't flush your mask down the toilet.
Yeah,
Come on.
March was different. Yeah, when there's no toilet paper, people would use shirt sleeves.
Oh my goodness, I didn't even think of that.
They'll use anything. So March was different. 2020 it's been a completely different year than 2019 for us.
Right.
Even in the growing aspect of what the market looked like when we first started to now, probably has a lot to do with you guys, how you guys get our webpage and this magic
That's
sorcery
Joseph.
stuff
That's
happens.
Joseph.
Yeah, all the wizardry we do. Yeah.
People can go listen to the Joseph episode if they want to know about that side.
I have no idea how it still works. So, but I think this year's been completely different. And then from the ups and the downs with COVID and people having to adapt. It's probably adapting in a good way, right? As human beings, staying healthier and everything else. But
Absolutely.
it's been a different year for everybody. Right. So I think everybody was pivoting a lot.
Right.
Oh yeah, you had to, right? It was forced.
Yeah.
Which I've always loved about your brand from day one. I love your intentionality. This kind of ties back to, I believe, our episode with Megan, our social media manager, but you're not afraid to get in front of the camera. I know when that was hitting, I was loving to see all these videos you were putting out. You were getting in front of there, talking to people, and leading with another key value I see in your brand, which is education. I think you guys are passionate about giving people free information, free value. Even if they never turn into a customer, you just want them to, have a home and a plumbing system that works well. And I love that you guys are about that because it shows, like you said, you're intentional. You take care of people even if you never step foot in their home in seasons where they probably need to know that you can't flush a shirt sleeve down the toilet.
Yeah. Well, it makes you more personable too.
Right.
If people can see your face, they can see your work, see what you're doing. I think we even did a video to just kind of soothe people, like, hey, we're still doing, wearing gloves, mask, all that for everybody. Just to know that if they're calling us, this is how they should expect us to show up, and our team is doing. And I knew it was important during the downturn of 2020 to continue to do that,
Right.
no matter how scary it got.
Yep.
Because I knew as soon as everything kind of opened the doors again, it would just explode, and that's exactly what it did for us. When Google shut down or whatever they did, and locked everything up and the algorithms and.
Yep. Their entire support
The
center,
sorcery.
shut down for like months.
And then it was as soon as the reviews hit again, and it was just exploded, and I mean we grew like crazy. But it was definitely a crazy time this year.
For sure.
So,
Yeah, that is really profound of talking about, I mean, just the social reach. You're not even just for a business, but in marketing, you've shown that you don't just double down on one area. You could put all your money towards SEO, but then you'd be missing the social side. And I love that you guys were so focused on wanting to remind people, just a message, just to let people know things are going to be okay. You're still out there. We're going to get through it. to get them familiar and comfortable with you is huge. And I think that really speaks to the heart of the business and brand you have, where it doesn't have to be about plumbing all the time. So anyone out there taking mental notes for the videos, it doesn't have to be about whatever you're doing.
Yeah, it can be anything. You know, just people seeing your face, hearing your
Right.
voice is huge.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of companies they can't see into the brand, and you putting your face out there just gets them more comfortable with you, and
Builds trust, right?
Even though if you've never even talked to them in
Exactly.
person, it's
Yeah.
like
Right.
a little bit of trust. Well, I just seen him put a furnace in. He must
Yeah.
know how to do a furnace. You know,
Yeah.
put an air conditioner in. Oh, he must know how to do an air conditioner. So
Right.
at least they see you doing the work and
Yeah.
not just showing up and saying it. You know,
Right.
So that was huge for us.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I had my final question teed up, but I didn't want to make sure I wasn't leaving you out in the dark here, Justin.
No, you're good.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you saw this one, and you don't have to answer it because it was more of a fun question on my end, but I know you're a CrossFitter. And when you're in CrossFit, I think it's a rule that you have to be very vocal about it.
Yeah.
So would you like a 30-second pitch to tell us about
Yeah,
CrossFit?
do CrossFit. There's some really good funny videos out there about CrossFit and you know, people doing CrossFit. Got to talk about CrossFit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, I do love CrossFit. I was a coach for a long time. I kind of stood back during the COVID and still operating the business and everything. But I think if you're going to do any type of stress relief, some kind of exercise is going to help. And that's what I love about CrossFit, because you can leave it all out there.
Right.
And you're like, you're just like, I'm glad I got done, you know, and you just let it all out.
Right.
And I used to bodybuild when I was younger, but my body's just can't handle that anymore.
Yeah.
So
Right.
my elbows and everything else are pretty shot. I'm just getting old, but you know, CrossFit's fun. And it's about community, and that's kind of what we're about too, is community.
Right.
And so that kind of bleeds over there too. So it's definitely a way of life. My wife loves to do it too. She hated working out, and now she's like, get up, come on, get up. You know, even now we're doing a lot of it at home. I mean, because everything that's going on. So just doing burpees and all that other stuff in your living room kind of gets monotonous, but it kind of gets you through it too. You know,
Right.
So
That was a great pitch.
yeah, do CrossFit.
Well, Nate, it was, like Justin said, this was exciting for us because it really was our first business owner. I don't think we could have chose a better person. We were, I loved hearing about the depths of the business and learning from you. So thank you so much for coming. I had a great time. I'm sure I speak for you too.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I'd like to leave this with is just hopefully people realize that one of the things that we really try to focus on here at Beyond Blue Media is that we are only a piece of the equation, right? And so it is super important to work with people. We are so much more successful when we have somebody that is as engaged, as on point, as willing to go through it with us like you are, that it's going to make everything that much better if we're working with this as a partnership, and not necessarily, which I always like to say is, you know, the person that hires the marketing company and thinks they can go sit and, you know, drink their margarita and lean back and go, okay, my work's done, marketing company's taken over, because it's not going to work in 2021.
No.
You know, so that's the thing that I love about you and why it was awesome to have you on, kind of our first actual client on our podcast. So appreciate that. And also, I'm going to have to get your phone number before you leave, so I have someone else to call at 3 a.m. Because it's kind of lonely.
No, it is, and that's so true. I think we're in contact with your team weekly, if not daily, or uploading photos, or you know, shooting ideas, or thinking about that. I mean, it definitely goes together, right?
Yeah.
And I know there's other companies you guys work with that are like, do you even exist anymore? You know, it's like, well, you got to be with your marketing team.
Yes.
Right. And shooting photos, all that other stuff. Anything you can do to help each other.
Absolutely.
Because we were gonna, I would agree. You guys would be like, well, what is Nate even doing?
Yep.
Like, is he really plumbing down there?
Yeah.
What's he doing? Is he doing any air
Sitting in his hot
conditioning?
tub.
Yeah,
smoking.
just sit in his hot tub. That's all he's doing, thinking ideas. And but you gotta. I think Rima that works with Remini and Chris and Joseph, everybody.
Right.
They're all always talking. I don't see every message. Like, there's like a lot of them. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, this is
They got it.
Yeah, Rima's got it. I just did let her go. But that's key, is also too, that delegation is letting go of the phone and letting go of that like aspect of things, because you can't handle everything from Facebook to Instagram to LinkedIn to your marketing team.
Right.
You gotta kind of go, hey, help me, help me.
Yeah.
You know? and it changes your business so much.
That's awesome.
So
nice. Well, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's been awesome.
Well, it's been great working with you guys. And Remini, I made it in 2 years. I told her. Oh, but thank you guys.
That's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Nate.
Yeah.